Listen to the radio. Harry and Edna's want to show you heard it from the Three Bells.
Happy days are here again because Harry and Edna are back in their own studio. Yay. Now you're saying not only are we in the studio, we're in Ireland, did you say?
No, you said we are in the island, back in the island, and I said to you, we're not in it, we're on it. But that was me just being pedantic.
Because if we were in it...
Yeah, it would be physically inside the island. Which,
along with all those dinosaur bones.
Yeah, but we're not. We're on top of the island.
That might explain the pterodactyl next to me. Ow, ow.
Can I just say, happy days are here again. It always reminds me of a sort of sunshiny, seasidey type feeling. Do you not think?
Is that just because we're about 7 minutes from the seaside?
Yeah, and we're back on our island, surrounded by a lovely, lovely coast.
We certainly are. But what made us live the island?
Yeah, because I was reading running around. I said to Harry, "Oh, did we live the island? What do you mean by live the island?" And he realised you'd done a slight typo. We left the island for a while, didn't we?
Yeah, why did we leave the island?
We
why
left
did we
the
leave?
island because we went to see dear old mainland, didn't we, as it's referred to?
What, dear old England?
Dear old England, and we went to see what was happening over on the mainland.
That's it, because we went to the Twinwood Festival. Now,
we did.
If you listen to any of our shows, we have guests on galore usually, and invariably the subject of Twinwoods comes up because it's probably one of the top 5 vintage events in the UK. It's a 3-day music festival, which now seems to be more like 4.
Yeah, because it seems to start Friday and then go on Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, it goes on longer and longer and longer.
Not that we're complaining, because it's a fantastic festival. It's one of our mainstays for our career, isn't it, really? We've been going to that for many, many years.
We were talking about this, actually. We've been going since it started, and it was before children.
That's got to be 14 plus years
ago.
It
was originally... It was always in I think the arena's in the same place, but it's now a proper arena.
Grown, hasn't it?
It's got banks now, but earth banks,
didn't it
hasn't
have
it?
Banks
no, it didn't. It was just literally just a field. I'm sure it was.
No,
and you went because we drove in the car. We had a vintage car.
But you still drove into the. Did we drive into? No, we didn't.
No, we drove straight in.
I don't think we did.
We did. And it was just a one-dayer, if I remember. In fact, not even a one day. It was an evening, wasn't it?
No.
And they had the various Glenn Miller bands. No.
Sure, it was a weekend.
No, it wasn't. It was just a day. And we drove in and we just saw it. We did. And we saw the Glenn Miller band with not Beryl Reid.
It was Beryl Reid, I'm sure, because all we saw was bright white teeth.
And Beryl was one of the original singers from Glenn Miller, which is why she was there. And this was about 16 years ago.
She had listeners to the most amazing white teeth, to the point that from a stage from a distance we could see was teeth. Pearly whites. It was impressive.
But in those days, the stage was just a flatbed lorry with a stepladder leading up to it.
That's true. I remember the rough and ready stage, but
yeah,
I think it was always banks there.
And that, we reckon, I was working it back, I think that was about 17... maybe 16, 17, possibly even 18 years ago.
No,
and we've been to every single one since then. And we've seen it grow, and it's now a big festival with multiple
we've
stages.
Moved just from the 40s to the 50s, and now we're embracing the 60s, aren't we?
It was. We'll talk later.
Yeah.
I was in the Soul Shack.
Harry
I was giving it much.
embracing the soul revival era.
I was with all them youngsters.
You're showing them your moves.
Showing my moves.
Original moves from the time.
I was. Moves like this, which was from Fred Douglas and the Rhythmic Troubadours. What one is it?
It's Ali Baba's Camel.
What ho?
Well, that was an interesting... See, it's seasidey, beachy themed, because that's sand.
That was just what I was thinking.
Is it?
It was all about sand in your shoes.
Well, this is it. We kind of have a loose seaside beach theme.
It's because we've had withdrawal symptoms, because while we've been back on dear old England, we've been far from the coast.
I know, and on the really sunny hot days you think, I shouldn't be here, I should be sat next to the sea.
Because it was very sunny, wasn't it? Twinwoods was very sunny this year.
Well, no. The day that it was sunny I wasn't there, so...
No, because you decided, because Twinwoods is held in Bedfordshire, and you decided, let's go to Bedford via Whitby... from the Solent.
Yes, so I drove up from the Solent, dropped off at Bedford to help you put the tent up and help organise you. And then I decided that, I didn't decide, we needed to go up to Whitby to pick up Middle Son, who'd been with his nana for a week in deepest, darkest North Yorkshire.
And you left me behind because I was earning the rent, because I was actually performing that day. I was a DJ gramophone playing, so, if you can say such a thing.
Yes. And I decided I'd leave Harry to earn his rent, but when I came back, I realised and learnt you'd been up to all sorts of shenanigans.
Oh, just because you left me overnight,
I did. I left you all on your own.
Yes. Yeah.
Texting me saying it was cold.
It was so cold that night.
I was indoors that night. One night camping, dear listener, was enough for me.
I don't normally camp, and the cold doesn't normally affect me, but that was a cold night.
Yeah.
That really was.
It
was. And we were next to our friends, Mr. Tom Carradine and Champagne Charlie. And the wonderful Faye and Bunny and Mrs. Bunny.
Yeah,
these are all other, because we're all camping together, all as
in the artist, and the artist
people.
Camping is the most. Last year we had glorious sunshine, didn't we? We had 3 full days of absolute glorious sunshine, from first dawn till last light. And what was lovely was that all the artists, because you're in the artist camping, you've got all of them out there, they're rehearsing, they're kind of busking al fresco, and it's just a lovely sound too. Obviously Harry's off working, so I'm there chilling with the boys, and you've got all this sort of people rehearsing. It's just the most amazing kind of place to be a part of. But that was last year, but it wasn't quite the same this year.
No, this year, instead of eating brie to the early hours of the morning, because you said how you decadent I was.
Well, you fell in the tent. I knew you were slightly worse for wear because you couldn't unzip the tent for a start. And that was quite amusing to listen to you trying to fumble and not really successfully unzipping a tent.
Well, we didn't have brie this year.
That was entertaining. No,
this year it was chocolate tarts.
That was because you were around a fire keeping warm. Whereas last year you were out under the stars talking about all sorts of rubbish till the wee small hours.
And I was with the wonderful Champagne Charlie. Champagne Charlie? Actually, we should say Champagne!
Hey.
We've got a track from Champagne Charlie at the end. And he's like me. He does like to keep the fire going.
Yeah.
And we pretty much burnt anything we could find.
Were you? See, this is a very male thing, I think, where boys just like burning stuff, whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah, and in the end we called it a night. This was, in the early hours. And I went to the facilities to, before you go to bed, as you do. And as I came back, there was about a 5-foot flame flying at this thing. And I thought, oh no, it's caught alight again. Only to find that Mr. Champagne had found some more stuff to burn.
So you went and joined him again, did you? And burnt more stuff?
And chocolate tarts.
Yes.
We did enjoy our good chocolate tart. But no, we should really be talking about Twinwoods, because there was lots of stuff going on.
Well, this was at Twinwoods.
But we're also talking about sand. So we're so confused here.
I know. We've got sort of a show about beach and summer and sand and lovely things, and then another one about a music festival in Bedfordshire. So, it feels like it's the end of summer. We're coming to the end of summer now, and it's sad.
And you're missing the sand in your shoes, aren't you?
I am missing sand in my shoes.
What ho?
I do love the Boswell Sisters and Sand in My Shoes. It's one of those tracks that I came across by pure accident one day, and I just couldn't stop playing it. I pretty much used up half my gramophone needle collection playing that.
It's a lovely, relaxed summer tune, isn't it? And it just makes me feel very warm and summery.
It reminds me of sitting by Harry's Tiki Bar beach hut. And actually, we don't get the sand in the shoes because we usually get the tides wrong, and usually the season.
We've never figured out our tides, have we? Whatever random part of the day we go down there, the tide's always in. Well, we've done it sometimes, but only sheer fluke. And
then as we leave, as the moon's up and the sun's setting,
and the tide
goes out there.
But I think this year has felt like the most glorious summer, because it's been such a long, hot summer. But being next to the coast, you really do. I've really felt like we've had an amazing summer this year.
And then we went and ruined it by working all over the place.
And then getting rained on and
miserable. It was because we didn't just say, not only did we have to do the Twinwood Festival, we went there on the Friday. You didn't finish work till 1 o'clock for that Friday morning. Well, 1 o'clock you got back home. Yeah. Because you were doing 2 weeks of running a medieval joust for 2 weeks.
Yes.
And then had the D-Rig party and had to go straight from there.
Literally in bed, sleep, up, car, out, ferry. to Twinwoods. But I think that's what makes it feel such a long summer, is we do an off-pack in the events, don't we?
We certainly do. And talking of events, Mr. Champagne Charlie, I'm assuming you are listening. Hello, Watto. I haven't forgotten what you agreed to when we were eating chocolate tarts around the fire, even though he denied all knowledge of it in the morning.
I know, but I'm assuming because you were discussing this, therefore it's in stone, therefore it's agreed, signed in blood, spat on and all the rest of it.
Because we said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get a few chums together over here on a little island on the south coast and maybe have a bit of a vintage weekender, a vintage island vintage.
Vintage island, I think, is the thing.
And Mr. Champagne Charlie, the Champagne Charlie, said, I'll come and play.
So which we've assumed that's it, but
that's it.
Done, deal, sorted. So we kind of, and then as you do, you discuss these things further, and then you get everyone excited, and people are so excited now it's got to happen.
I hope so. I really do, because it would be great, because we are relatively new to the island. Mm-hmm. You've been here a bit longer than I, and we're still not sure the vintage scene on the island. I'm not
quite sure it's a really up and... the vintage scene that we're used to. There are pockets, but not quite the wholesome vintage scene that we left on dear old Blighty.
But if you remember, where we used to live, we started doing vintage events because there wasn't any in our area.
This is true. We are pioneers in the field.
And we decided to do them. And then, to our surprise, all these people came.
Because there are people around. It's just they need a collective event to come to.
So do let us know, dear listeners, if this is something that floats your boat and you want to get some sand in your shoes. Do let us know, because I want to know if there's a bit of a market here before we commit to saying, please, Mr. Champagne Charlie, please come over.
But we think that because the island was in its Victorian heyday, there is so much vintage. There are so many beautiful buildings and places where you can be absolutely vintage here.
We can, and they could come on the high-speed railway.
Even our house is vintage.
Couldn't they? They could come on the high-speed vintage railway.
They could do.
Straight off Ryde Pier.
Yeah, which is at least 1930s.
For those of you who don't know, on the Isle of Wight, the main line railway is actually 1930s London Underground rolling stock.
Because we don't actually have big trains, we have ickle
we have to have little ones
trains.
Because the tunnels and the bridges are so small, they're the only trains that can get through. And that's why we have underground trains.
As our mainline train. Which is so idyllic.
It is, because when you get on them, they've got a little plate there saying, like, made in Bowen-Furness in 1931.
Yeah, It's so lovely. And what makes us chuckle, it's one of the main things why we love the island. We've been coming for many, many years before we lived here, and it's so laid back. And they always say, don't they, if you want to experience life in the 1950s, go and live on the Isle of Wight. And to be fair, it is fairly like that. No,
I'd say it's more
40s?
No, more modern than that.
Do you?
60s, 70s, 80s.
Do you?
And it's a great thing. I don't mean this disrespectfully, because I think it's actually a much better way of life. I think the rest of the world should take leadership from the island.
Yeah, because when you do arrive back on the mainland,
it's not nice, is it?
It's not nice, and I have business trips over to London, and you think, God, everyone goes so fast. Slow down, everyone. Whoa.
Well, it is like that because we drive around, obviously, on the island, and you're very lucky. In fact, very rarely do you ever get your car into fifth gear.
Yeah, there's just no dual carriageway.
There's one.
Well, there's tiny. By the time you get up to 70, you're de-accelerating before you know it.
However, you get off the ferry at either Portsmouth or Southampton, and you're pretty much straight into three-lane traffic, and it's go, 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 isn't it?
And a lot of islanders don't like driving on the mainland because it is too fast, because it is a far more laid-back pace of life here.
It is. Now, we're supposed to be talking about Glenn Miller.
I know, we've gone off on a tangent about our idyllic lifestyle.
So I shall tell you about Glenn Miller after we play some Glenn Miller. And there is a reason.
And then we'll go back to the festival, honestly.
There is a reason for playing Glenn Miller, because we're supposed to be talking about Twinwoods, and so far we haven't really got anywhere at all.
No, we touched on it and then diversed off.
What ho?
Right. Okay. That was Glenn Miller.
Yes.
We're talking only Twinwoods. We're not talking about sand. We're not talking about beach huts. We're not talking about Harry's
idyllic
Tiki
island
Bar.
Lifestyle, yeah.
We're not talking about you trying to drive around with a wardrobe in the back of a Mini.
No. Focus Glenn Miller, Twinwood.
Glenn Miller. Why did we play Glenn Miller?
Well, I'm assuming it's because we went to the Glenn Miller Festival.
No,
Twinwood Festival.
The Twinwood Festival.
Which used to be called the Glen Miller Festival. Yeah.
That's right, because Twinwoods was an airfield in the Second World War. It's not an airfield anymore, it's just agricultural fields.
It's still very windy,
it's very windy.
An airfield.
And there is a control tower, and there's
a great big road, which is very long and straight.
And there is buildings that used to be the support buildings from the RAF, or the US Air Force, because that was the airfield that Glenn Miller took off from in, I think it was Christmas Eve, was it, 1944? It was certainly around Christmas.
Yeah.
When he took off
and disappeared. Which is really sad.
Yes, so that's why we were playing some Glenn Miller, and we have another Glenn Miller later on. And it's also, that was called Cuckooing the Clock, as you probably guessed by the... Cuckooing. I bet Glenn Miller fans, not many of you have heard that before.
What, the Cuckoo in the Clock?
Yeah, it's not a classic Glenn Miller track,
well,
is it?
I suppose not, no. But there's loads of really great Glenn Miller tracks that sadly fall outside of the same repetitive 3 or 4 that you hear over and over. But as we used to, didn't we, when it was the Glenn Miller Festival, because you had every version of Little Brown Jug you could ever imagine. Yeah,
and
every variation of the Glenn Miller Orchestra, tribute orchestra, and it was an interesting experience. But
it was a Glenn Miller Fest.
It was a Glenn Miller Festival, but they have sort of diversified and grown it.
Yes, because we saw Elvis.
We did see
this
Elvis.
Year, Elvis played.
What was frightening was our 14-year-old was boogieing us along and singing the songs. I mean, It wasn't frightening. It was lovely and amazing to hear. But you just think, how do you know all these?
And Elvis got back with Priscilla.
He did. They had a... Well, she didn't. She just kind of...
She came on stage and held his hand.
Posed a bit, yeah, and looked lovingly into his eyes.
And she had the most amazing beehive.
Yes, she did. But it's great to shout out to Viva Las Vegas, wasn't it?
No, I wasn't there because I had to go in search, because our son had lost his phone and I had to go in search in a campsite, try and find it.
No, he hadn't lost it. Son number 2 didn't listen to her. I said I'd last seen his phone. Had a moment and completely forgot about his phone, and then you went into a panic.
Anyway, moving on.
It's not moving on. It was. You missed the highlight, the pinnacle.
I wanted to see Viva Las Vegas
of Elvis's tribute section.
Oh, yeah. But I had a bit more exclusivity.
Yeah, well then
because when you went back with the children, because you were tired after driving from Whitby, Yorkshire via Istanbul or whatever it was you're doing, I was there. I decided,
I'll just pop out for half an hour.
Well, they have, because when the main stage finishes, there's all these old former RAF huts, and they turn those into nightclubs, and you've got like
the Soul Shack,
a Moonshine,
the Glade,
Casablanca club. You got lots of these clubs, different styles of music in all these different clubs, and you can go along because you just walk into one,
there's a pub,
then move on to the next one.
Pub.
Exactly. And while I was there, walking past me was Elvis holding Priscilla's hand.
See, where else would you get to bump into Elvis?
Holding Priscilla's hand.
Exactly. See, it could only happen at Twinwoods.
It can. Now, I don't think we're doing full justice to what Twinwoods is.
No.
Now, we had a chat with Sarah Dunn, who's the marketing manager at Twinwoods, quite a while ago, probably about a couple of years ago, actually. But she did this very good description of what Twinwoods was like.
So we thought, rather than us bimble our way through it, would leave it to the expert.
It would, because I bet she doesn't talk about soul shacks and lost mobile phones and things like that. So we'll play a bit of Jack Hilton and then we'll go straight over to Sarah.
What ho?
I'm here today with Sarah, marketing manager of Twinwood Festival. Just tell our listeners, what is the Twinwood Festival?
So Twinwood Festival is over August bank holiday, and we're 3 days of live music. I mean, we have over 60 acts. We've got some fantastic vintage shopping, lots of dance lessons. So if you're a vintage lover, it really does, take everything vintage and put it on one site for 3 days. But yeah, you've got 3 days of sort of live vintage everything, really. It's a real melting pot of all of it.
When you say vintage, what eras does that cover? Because for some people that would be 50s, 40s, but you have a much wider range than that at the festival.
Yes, we do. I mean, predominantly we focus on the 40s and 50s. I mean, the 40s and 50s have always been very, very popular at Twinwoods, and if you've been on site before, I mean, you'll notice the fashions. We've got some very stylish visitors. But we do have the Colonial Club, our massive indoor sort of deco marquee, and obviously that caters for 20s and 30s. We have some 60s on site, and with the Soul Shack. But then we obviously have, up at the Control Tower now in the evenings, with some really incredible swing. So we really do cater for, the Lindy Hoppers and the Jivers and all that sort of thing.
So if I'm completely new to Twinwood, is it easily accessible?
We're very lucky. The site's actually RAF Twinwood, which is the historic site that band leader Glenn Miller took his last flight from. So we're a really historic site with lots of museums, but we're actually 5 minutes from Bedford Town Centre. So if you're coming by train, take a 10-minute taxi from the train station. If you want to stay, by all means come on site. Our camping, I have to say, I'm not necessarily a camper, but it's good camping and it's very picturesque. You look out over the lovely rural Bedfordshire countryside, which I have to say is quite spectacular in the summertime. We have glamping, which I have to say very, very excited about, and we actually have Brook Bell tents coming and setting up these incredible vintage setups. There's going to be like a glamping village, private showers and all that sort of thing. So yeah, you can see I'm smiling at this one. I want to glamp.
So glamping is where you don't need to bring a huge amount of stuff except your clothes.
Oh, it's brilliant. Glamping, you just turn up, basically. So my sort of camping, you basically sort your outfits out before you leave home, drive up on site, and everything will be waiting for you. And to me, that's a really great way of camping because, I'm tall. I like to be able to stand up in the tent. These are great big bell tents. So they're very spacious. They're really cosy. And we've got lots of different packages. And once you go onto the website, you can click through from us to the bell tent packages, and it's nice and easy because you can just choose which one you want, and they've got nice lots of warm bedding as well, which is very important. The website, you want to check out twinwoodsevents.com.
What ho?
The Mills Brothers, Opus 1.
Oh, it's one of my faves, that one.
It's a Twinwood fave.
It is a Twinwood
fave. It is a Twinwood fave. Now, we should explain, just in case you're a little confused, we recorded that interview with Sarah a long time ago, and that's why she's talking in the, and this is going to happen, and that's going to happen. Well, it's already happened.
Yes, but do check out the website, because obviously they've already booked acts, and Campsite A is already sold out, because it's so popular that people book for the following year whilst they're at the festival. So I know for sure A is sold out, and the festival is already booking for next year.
That's it. So if you want tickets to Twinwood Festival 2019...
Yeah. Check out the website. Book your camping.
Campsite A is the nearest campsite.
Hence it's being sold out.
And then you've got Campsite B and C, and the further down the alphabet you go, the further away you are from the main entrance, and the longer the walk you have.
Yeah, but it's not a massively long walk, and there are shuttle buses that run up and down.
There's a bus to take you from one end to the other, so it is a bit of a walk.
People take shed loads of stuff, don't they, which is fair enough. They take all their chairs and kit and caboodle for the day.
And some of the acts have been confirmed.
Yeah.
Well, not confirmed. I got a booking. Yay, I'm back.
Gramophone Harry is booked and in there already for next year.
Yes,
and considering this one's only just finished, that's not bad, Harry. Well done.
Yes, because for those of you who don't know, I actually do a bit of, I suppose you would call it DJing, but I do it with wind-up gramophones. I mean, I can DJ in the traditional sense because I have with
he has
music,
the technology.
with technology, but I only do sort of 40s and 30s stuff, but I do it at Twinwoods with a gramophone, so it's very different. It's not like back-to-back music. It's wind up, listen,
watch
change
Harry's
the needle,
backside for a bit while he winds up the gramophone.
And I'm working with the wonderful Mr. Thomas Benjamin Wilde Esquire.
Yes. Well, you do a great double act, but you're on the Liberty stage, aren't you?
We were, although we were Liberty stage and also the Casablanca Club. We were moving around, I tell you.
I think that was more to do with the weather, my love, wasn't it?
No, I'm bigging this one up.
No. Why don't you just admit they absolutely tiddled it down on the Sunday to the fact that me and the children tootled off home because it was a bit of a disaster the night before camping. One night was more than enough for me and the children. for various reasons, and so we were grumpy and tired and decided to call it a day.
And there will be a representative from our dear little island.
Yes.
Like ever, young Hannah is going across.
So we didn't put her off by coming home early and fighting the torrential rain. But yes, we're taking the island talent over to the festival.
And who's that?
It's Hannah Piera.
Hannah Piera, who we did in a previous show talk about the 1940s experience in the Isle of Wight, and she was one of the acts that performed there, in case you don't know.
And slash model.
Slash model. Oh, yes, she was in a fashion show too,
yes,
wasn't she?
She
was modelling for the House of Foxy. So it's all happening. This is a vintage isle.
We spread our vintage love over to the island, and then we take it back over to the mainland again. We're like little ping pong balls over the Solent, aren't we?
We are. And I should lead in, if you did want to hear that show or any of the previous ones, it's harryandedna.co.uk, and then we've got all the previous back catalogue of all the shows, and some of them are available as a downloadable podcast, or you internet stream, or if you want you can listen to us on the radio, because this is the best way to hear us, on the radio right now, which is the best way to hear us.
Yeah, mistakes and all.
What ho?
Now, with our various sort of flitting around the years and the eras and the decades and all the different events and things we've done over the years with our children, you kind of hope not against hope, you just kind of hope that in a positive way your influence has rubbed off on your children, because ours have had a really diverse introduction, haven't they, to music and to art, and they've met many artists over the years.
And they say, it's old, Daddy.
It's old. And they, I often think, I work in a castle, and I think, to me that's the coolest thing in the world, but you just think our children take it in their stride. And it was really gratifying, wasn't it, at Twinwoods, when our eldest is kind of boogieing away and singing along to Elvis, and our middle son, to our surprise, has really gotten into rock and roll, hasn't he? And so our next track really is sort of as a homage to our middle son and his love of rock and roll.
But you say this, talking of middle son's music, and I don't want to embarrass him too much. At one time, he went through a phase of liking Phil Collins, and who was it? Was
that
it
was
Guns,
shocking. We don't know where that came from.
and Guns N' Roses, and neither of us have really played that music, so I don't know where that came from.
I think that was outside influences, but it was really gratifying, wasn't it, when he started downloading Great Balls of Fire. What else has he downloaded? Rock Around the Clock.
Well, he told me he downloaded when he was stuck in the back of a car coming back from Yorkshire with his mother driving, because they do the internet streaming music services, and he found the Broadway Twisters, which is a band that we love. I mean, they're not massive, but amazing musicians, and he was playing some Broadway Twisters.
And we've worked with them on several occasions, and we absolutely love them to pieces, because not only they fantastic chaps, but their music and their talent is just incredible.
Yeah, because they're basically a duo, and occasionally a drummer joins in, and if a drummer doesn't join in, it doesn't matter, because Dr. Billy's on the slap bass, and he can keep it going.
But they met them as youngsters, didn't they? So you kind of think that they sort of took it in their stride, and you don't know whether you have an impact on your children's sort of things they like. But this was really kind of testament to. It came full circle, didn't it, when he downloaded the Broadway Twisters, and one of our favourite songs they did. No,
you're taking it wrong.
Go on.
I get told off because, Daddy, no one downloads anymore. You're such a dinosaur.
Okay, so what do they do?
They stream. They stream from these music services. If
you're streaming it saves it onto something.
Sometimes you can save it on, like into your cache.
So when you've saved it, then surely that's downloading it.
Hey, you ask them.
I don't know. I'm just getting all technical, but I think if you're saving something to a device, surely you've downloaded it.
The phrase they used was Daddy Dino.
I know. Well, no, you're called Daddy Dino, aren't you? But here's a little bit of what we're ranting on about, which is the Broadway Twisters and Blue Days, Black Nights.
What ho?
That one.
Do you reckon we could persuade Mr. Billy, or Dr. Billy,
as he is now,
and Adrian, to come over to Vintage Island,
Vintage Island, to do a bit of 50s. I know that was a step into the 50s, but gosh, it was good. It was good,
and we played with them once before. We were commissioned to do a garden party for a well-known person, and they were our closing act.
Yeah, but it was high octane rockabilly, and it really did, and it was lovely because we worked through the eras, didn't we? We did the 30s, 40s, and they ended up on the high octane rockabilly kind of 50s,
and it was an amazing day.
It's fantastic.
That's what we should do. We should get our 20s acts and a bit of a sort of 1940s act, then straight into a bit of rockabilly, and then we divert off to individual nightclubs so I can do my Northern Soul dancing
See,
again.
I always get blamed for my organic thinking, usually fuelled by gin and tonic or wine. See, and here we are doing a radio show, and this is how Harry and I work, and several of our friends. We get around, we have a seed of an idea, and then that's before we know it, we've got a whole festival on our hands.
But it's that time. We have to go. In fact, we've overrun.
Surely not.
No, we have. So I need to say Tinkty Tong.
And it's a toodle pip from me.
And we're going to play out with Champagne Charlie. Who, Champagne Charlie, you, by the way, you did agree to play.
And you're doing Vintage Island, by the way, next year. Just saying.
What ho!